Unique or different is not something I wanted to be. Growing up, I was made fun of, and it caused me a lot of pain. All I wanted to do was fit in, but the harder I tried, the more I stood out. Early in my life, I thought God had made a mistake. I just couldn't see why I was made the way I was, or that I was a gift from God. God gifted me with several talents, both good and bad. One of those is perseverance, and I also have the one that I'm the CC, that gave to me was authenticity. So that's not in here, but it's kind of a cool gift. It does give me the ability, and grow back to perseverance. It just gives me the ability to keep on going through life when things are out of my control. I struggle to deal with them or process them at all at several times in my life. And several times my life has gotten unmanageable to the point where I had to cry out to God for what He could only do for me. My life verse is Luke 6:31. Do unto others as they would have do unto you. I heard this verse in summer Bible school early, and it always been in my mind after learning it. For the most part, this verse serves me well, but it can cause me trouble sometimes. At times, I wanted others to fill the void that they could not. This void, I discovered, can only be filled with Jesus, believing and inviting Him in. I grew up in a good home with my mother, father, and older brother. We really, to this day, we still don't talk about issues we face. I did the best I could to not make waves in my family and just make people happy with me. I tried to do this because my brother was better than me in most things, and he's smarter, and he got attention for being perfect. So this is one of the first times where people-pleasing came in, and now I know that is codependency. This pattern has happened more than once in my life. School was not a happy place for me. This is where being different or unique makes me a target of bullies. At the time, I was not a strong, independent person who could stand up on my own and, with God's help, and not care what others thought of me. Some days it took all that I could muster to go back to the place where I knew I didn't fit in. Perseverance is what got me through school, but I paid a price for not thinking I mattered to anyone, least of all God. I moved twice with my family while I was growing up. This meant that I had to try all over again in a new place with new people, and I was incapable of doing this at all. This made me withdraw further into myself. Every time I tried to fit in, it just got harder for me too. I lived this way for almost 20 years. Oh, oops, I skipped it. I was so unhappy that I just wanted to become invisible because it was too painful for me to keep trying to fit in. Sometimes I would try, but I never got the hang of just being me, all of me, around people without having a mask on, saying that I was fine and happy to do whatever you wanted to do for you. I believe that would lead me to be happy. In middle school, I had an accident that only God had the power to save me. I was a latchkey kid, but one day I didn't have my key to get in. And there was this involved, I did get in, a heavy storm window. It was wintertime and it recently snowed. I managed to get the storm window off, unlock the door, and was in the process of putting the window back up when I slipped off the block I was standing on, and the window fell against me. I knew I had cut my face, but I didn't realize the glass had gone through my lip, and well, I actually could see the hole, and it cut my tongue. I was bleeding a lot, and I was really scared. And to make matters worse, I knew my parents weren't going to be back for a while because we were in the process of moving to Superior. And this was before cell phones and 911. So when I was all alone, I did remember to lay down and to stop the bleeding, but I was starting to panic because there was so much blood and I was all alone. This is when I started to pray to God because I didn't really want to die. I believe He was listening because my parents actually showed up shortly after that, and they got me to the hospital. And while I was there, you have permission to look at my face, because at the time I didn't like the scar that I developed 2 scars, but the one that's more prominable on my face is the one that most people actually miss. If you look right here, there's a cross. Yeah, and at the time, I was kind of walking away from God. So I really didn't want that scar. But in further my testimony, well, I don't actually talk, but I'm proud of that scar. I see it almost every day. And it's a visible sign that I was saved by God. So it's a really cool scar now. High school was torture for me. I was teased relentlessly for 4 years while I was in Superior. So even though I was told to ignore it, it was very painful, and words definitely can be harmful and have long-term effects. By this time in my life, I didn't have a relationship with Jesus or God. I just wanted to be loved, and I found that guys paid attention to me. I had a few boyfriends in high school, and because I didn't understand that I should wait until I was married, I did some things I regret. I took all sorts of risks, and that could have resulted in things that at the time I just didn't think about. I'm so grateful that I can look back now and think that most of the behavior I did was because of my dad. He was and is still emotionally distant to this day. I needed him to show me the love, or at least I thought I did, to me that I never got, and I was so desperately wanting, and I looked for it in all the wrong places. I was glad to go to college, but I didn't fit in there either. I just kept hitting the same wall of not being okay with who I am. Only after a year and a half of school, I dropped out because my grades were not good. I moved back in with my parents, and I needed to get a job to start paying back my student loans. This is where I got my first real job, because growing up, my parents never really encouraged me to work. They wanted me to go to college so that I could get a good paying job. They did what they thought was best for me, but neither me or them understood the support I needed. I was not in my job long before a guy asked me out. He showed me what I thought was unconditional love, and because I really didn't know what that looked like, I felt I was in love and happy. I wasn't with Raymond for very long before I became pregnant. I was very scared, and because I believed I needed to get married because I was pregnant. I did not know him very well, or myself for that matter. I just wanted to make him happy, or that's the part of codependency showed up in me. And at this part of my life, I was so very confused and not happy at all. My life with Raymond was rocky, filled with ups and downs, including postpartum depression. But once again, I persevered. We have 2 children, Angel, who was born in '96, and Lily, who was born in '98. These are some of the high points in my marriage. There were a lot more lows in our relationship than I can count. I could never count on Raymond to be supportive financially or emotionally in our relationship. Trust started to break down, and after 7 years, I filed for divorce in 2003. Looking back, I can realize and believe that we were very toxically codependent on each other, and we both had insecurities. My divorce was finalized in 2004. My ex-husband was tragically loved.
I think your battery died.
Okay. I can speak a little louder.
Well, let's do that.
Okay. And actually, that's another thing that's not in my testimony anywhere, but during school, I think they devalued my voice. I didn't think I had a voice, and so I didn't speak very much. Or when I did, I was very quiet. But now, I have a voice. I have less trouble speaking in public, although I'm nervous. My ex-husband was tragically killed in a car accident.
That's even on.
Okay. My divorce was finalized in 2004. My ex-husband was tragically killed in a car accident in September of 2004. The funeral brought up to the surface unresolved hurts of all sides. I wasn't able to attend the funeral because of this, and the girls didn't either. After getting divorced, I never really grieved or processed the loss of my marriage. I met a man that I was introduced to by mutual friends on January 1st of 2004. In retrospect, I wish I had worked more on myself and know what I needed first. I still was missing emotional support and love. God does have a way of putting people in your life when you need them most, even if you don't understand. That person he put in my life is my husband. We got married in December of 2004, and he does my hair. Our relationship is so different from the past. We both had hurts and could see that God was using the hurt from our past relationships to have a very healthier relationship, which includes God. I got him to actually go back to church.
Amen.
Yeah. Life has a way of continuing to move on, even if you don't work on the issues of your past. About 6 months after the funeral of my ex-husband in 2004, his family contacted me and were threatening to go to court for them to be able to see the girls. My first thought was to deny them access to the girls because I was playing the victim. I am glad that I had a change of mind after some soul searching, and then decided to let the girls see their grandmother. I still wasn't sure that this was the best decision to make, and then I made my husband go to the first because that family is not the healthiest, and I felt awkward and judged at first. But after time, I came to believe that the girls had the right to know both grandparents, and that it was the right decision all along. But I got flack from my parents. And I'm glad my anger towards them did not affect this decision. I believe 2006 was the hardest year of my life to date. I not only had to have back surgery, in the same year I was diagnosed with my bipolar disorder. The back surgery was straightforward, and although the healing took some time, the other diagnosis took years for me to come to terms with. In September of 2009, the girl's grandmother passed away. The girls got to spend about 5 years with her. By this time, I had got a chance to repair the damage I had done, and things were repaired between my relationship with my ex-husband's family and myself. I'm so grateful I decided to work on the relationship because unlike the one with my ex-husband that I could never really fix, I asked for forgiveness because of his death. Because of his death. I did so with the girl's grandmother. And unlike the funeral with Raymond, where I wasn't welcomed at all, I sat with the family at her funeral. Everybody had been in shock at the untimely passing of Raymond. But by the time the grandmother's funeral, things had been worked through and forgiveness had been given and received. Her death had an unexpected effect on me. I was finally facing the death of my ex-husband that I had never really grieved. I had a conflict of emotions that made me question my beliefs. My bipolar made me obsess over things that I had not been resolved. My mind was working overtime to understand everything, and I was overwhelmed. At this time, my mother-in-law was attending Lakeview and had heard of Celebrate Recovery. She actually didn't know that she is the responsibility for me. She suggested that I attend, which at the time I thought wouldn't hurt. I'm so grateful that I did, even though I was so broken and hurting. I spoke very little and did not participate much at first. I did have trust issues from the past, and I was unable to speak. Even though I didn't feel comfortable, I continued to come. It took me months before I talked, and I struggled to put words together and say them out loud. My first breakthrough in Celebrate Recovery is when I decided to go into a step group where you work the steps in depth. I thought it couldn't hurt and wanted to believe that it might help me get better. I questioned why I was there or if it was going to be too painful to complete. But I did complete that step group, and I'm glad I did. I have always believed that God was real, but I didn't always believe that God was there for me. Through the step group, I not only got better, I got a renewed belief in Jesus and God. For the first time, I truly understood who God was and the value of his relationship with him. After continuing to work on the steps, I began to trust ladies in my group and people that celebrate recovery in general. This was and is a great find in my life, and I continue to trust more and question myself less. I continue to stretch myself in ways I thought I never would. I became a Celebrate Recovery leader, which not only is a blessing to me, but it also gives me an opportunity to give back to God and to others, which brings me full circle into my life first. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Luke 6:31. Since being in Celebrate Recovery for I think it's about 11 years now, big things have happened. It started off small, knowing that God loved me and that I mattered to him, and I was not a mistake. Through several step groups, I had the privilege to see others come to know God and Jesus and get healthier and closer to him, and I've worked off several layers. The biggest layer that came off was about 5 years ago, thanks to George and his sermon at the Celebrate Recovery retreat that happens around Memorial Day weekend, which we are, where I actually attempted to find a sponsor originally, but I stayed because I felt accepted and loved for who I am. At that retreat, I finally let go of the chain that held me in bondage for too many years, the one that I was okay being all of me, even the parts that until that time I hated. It's who I am, and I hated myself. But I didn't actually realize I had walked through that until about 6 months or almost to the retreat again, and then I thank George, because I do appreciate God speaking through him to me. And then it's a whole lot easier being who God created me to be all along. And I have the freedom, and it's about 5 years now, of walking, I have the freedom of walking out. I don't have the chains of comparison anymore. I go to God with everything. Yeah. 3 years ago, I had to confront my dad about the year before. We were on a canoe trip in the Boundary Waters, and he was verbally abusive to my daughter. It actually took me a year to confront him because we don't talk about issues at all. I was not sure how my dad was going to react to the confrontation. I really thought he might disown me for speaking out about what he had said and how he had said it. I did have a lot of ladies praying for me and a whole lot of fear going into that meeting. But I knew I needed to say what he had done was not okay and that he had hurt my daughter. It was hard for me to go through, but I did not want, because I didn't want to work on my relationship with my dad, but it was necessary for my recovery. I had stalled my moving forward by not dealing with the past. At the end of the meeting, I made a plan to visit my parents every month. I did want to have a relationship with my dad, so I did follow up every month until COVID hit. And then after walking through confronting my dad, I knew I had the support from God because he walked me through that. That's when I actually quit my job because I walked through that other situation. Looking back, it had become a manageable mess. I tried to manage my expectations and wanted to persevere over all of it, but it had just gotten too much for me. I thought I had to stay because I'm always the one who carries the health insurance. That kept me in my job longer than when I should have left. I took the risk of leaving even though I was scared and there was no backup plan. I felt, and now I left, and now I'm more content in my current job. 11 years ago in Celebrate Your Recovery, or 11 years in Celebrate Your Recovery, I have grown to appreciate who God has created me to be. before CR, I needed to know the reason for doing something to do it. I have learned I do not have to know why, and I trust God to lead me where He wants me to go, because His way is much better for me in the long run. I want to encourage anyone out there, if you're unsure of Celebrate Recovery and this retreat, I want you to keep coming back. I kept coming back, and I'm super grateful I did. And through these retreats, I have seen the biggest growth with God here. So I'm very grateful, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for letting me share.
All right, T-Lynn, why don't you come up and explain your game at lunchtime? No, or dinner time, whatever. Just so people, we're not going to meet again beforehand, so.
Oh, okay, sure.